Hi, and welcome to the SaVeg podcast.
I'm Rose, also known as Cheap Lazy Vegan on YouTube.
And I'm Daniel, one of your favorite guest stars on Cheap Lazy Vegan's YouTube channel.
We're two friends who love to talk about the latest trending topics.
So get comfortable and join us while we give our SaVeg take on just about everything.
You are currently listening to the previous episode of this podcast, but if you would like to listen to this week's episode and get some exclusive content, go over to patreon.com/thesavagepodcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the SaVeg podcast.
Hello, everybody. We're back.
We are back, and this is episode 68, guys.
Oh, Lord.
We are getting up there. You know what that means, Rose? You know what episode is next?
69.
God damn, something I ain't done in a long time.
Oh my.
Just kidding, guys.
Daniel,
just kidding.
I think you're become this episode is obviously not PG friendly. Apparently,
Oh, God.
You're letting loose on this podcast. A little too loose.
Oh, God. I think, yes, definitely a little too loose. Great way to kick off this podcast, guys. My goodness.
Has anyone slid into your DMs after our conversations?
Shall I show you who's slid? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it doesn't help that our audience is predominantly female, so.
Yeah, that's true.
But apparently a lot of people think I have a crush on you, so that's funny.
Oh my, like, what is about this? What? Okay, I'm
well,
sure
apparently
that, like,
no one thinks that Daniel has a crush on me, so that's a great sign.
I know. Like, literally all the
Everyone's
comments are like,
yeah.
They're like, she needs to get over him. Like, she just needs to, like, does she not realize?
Oh my God. Look at
is
her
she okay?
flirting. She's in love with him.
She's so, Rose, I didn't realize you gave me that, you know,
Daniel,
gave
I'm
off
sorry.
this kind of,
I be in love with you. I'm
You
a
just
fag hag, apparently. Am I allowed to say that? Am I canceled?
No, I don't know if that's canceled. I think
it sounds very offensive. Isn't fag a very offensive term?
Yeah, it is. Fag's not.
Isn't
like a nice
that
term.
word canceled? I don't know.
I think it is. And the whole idea of like what a fag hag represents and stuff, I feel like it's not, all of it isn't like that. And it's just like so many things. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
But it's a funny thing. It's a funny little saying.
We're saying it as in a joking matter. I remember we talked about this the other day with the Taylor Swift situation and the stories. You know how we're getting this like hypersensitive culture and like, you know, where do we draw the line? So we're saying that as something to be fun, like a joke in a joking
Jokes
manner.
are not allowed, Daniel. Jokes are not allowed in 2021. Didn't you know that?
This is the year of the non-jokes, you know? My goodness.
But actually, it's kind of crazy if you watch like old sitcoms or old movies, like not even that old, but like ones that we enjoyed as teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
And you see some of the comedy and you're like, holy.
You're
like for example, like
Go
there
ahead.
was, I was watching Rush Hour like 2 days ago, which is like quite old. I think it's like before 2000.
Yeah.
Which, oh my God, that would have been how many years ago, Daniel? Is that 20 years ago?
21 years ago, Rose, if it's before 2000.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think it was in the late 90s, maybe. Rush Hour 1.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was kind of like half watching it, but there's like a scene where like Jackie Chan, he's like, you know, he's new to the States and they go into this like predominantly black bar with Chris Tucker. You've seen Rush Hour, right?
Yeah, like years ago though.
And then there's like a scene where like Jackie Chan like just goes to the bartender and I guess he's just, you know, imitating Chris Tucker and he says the N-word to the bartender and he says it like, you know, full on. And I'm like, damn, that would not be allowed in today's day and age. You'd be canceled for that shit, even if you said it as a joke.
That's so true.
It's kind of crazy.
I do find like, if I recall correctly, that Rush Hour film, like Jackie Chan in particular, during that era, like the, you know, Jackie Chan heydays, I guess, he was also so typecast. Like,
all Asians, I think most Asians are typecast.
Yeah.
In Hollywood. They all do either what are the roles of Asians? Okay. Martial art.
Yeah,
it's always like,
the martial arts specialist.
Yeah. It always has to be the martial art or like, I don't know. What else? The friend. The nerdy friend.
The nerdy friend, or the friend who has like a bunch of like gadgets, like really cool gadgets and stuff. So I remember there was like a really old film that I used to love. It's like a kid's film called The Goonies. If anyone's
Okay.
seen it, let me know. Like, it's so good. And oh my God, I can't remember. There was like a little Chinese boy in it, and I can't remember what his name was in the film. So, but he like had all the like gadgets. He had like all these like crazy gadgets that would always be like popping up and like, you know.
Right.
So I feel like that was like a typecast. And also
Really?
another typecast is like the innocent kind of like princess, you know, like Asian princess kind of thing.
What movies would that be, Daniel? I don't
So,
remember seeing lots of movies with innocent Asian princesses.
I'm sure there has been, or like the innocent Asian girl. You know what I mean? Like the like.
Name
I'm trying to
some
think.
movies.
Way to put me on the spot, Rose.
Well,
Let me
you
think.
said there was a typecast. I
True.
don't know if I've ever seen, like, first of all, there just aren't many Asians in Hollywood media in general. So I think the only Asians I've seen, like, you know, in Hollywood media is, like majorly martial arts, like that, or like really nerdy people. But I don't know what this princess role is that you're speaking
like, I was
of.
thinking of like Memoirs of a Geisha kind of vibes.
But that's geisha.
That's true.
And that's in Asia.
I know that's
different.
true. Okay, never mind, guys. There was another one. I swear to God, I'm not making this shit up. Okay, like
I love calling Daniel out.
It was typecast in my mind.
Maybe that was your stereotype of Asian women, Daniel. It's always the Asians were always and still are always the kind of the friend, you know, the friend that shows up sometimes. You know,
I know
it's
it's like crazy, like very rarely. And like I think there are starting to be some films like that are getting like a bit more, but like you're right, it's very rare that like the Asian woman or man will be like the main love interest or like the main, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem to happen
unless they do like martial arts.
Yeah, unless they're like a martial arts specialist
or they're a geisha.
Or it's like predominantly Asian cast.
Yeah, unless you're in like crazy rich Asians. Otherwise, you're just going to be the best friend.
Exactly.
No other roles are available for you.
Exactly. You're not going to be the love interest. You're not going to be the, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's bad.
Yeah, and it's still kind of like that. Like I can't think of movies where it's not like a traditional, like it has to be like a traditional Asian role. Yeah. Otherwise, there's no movies where Asian person is the lead person. The only thing I can think of is like Charlie's Angels, where like Lucy Liu was one of the lead, but she was just one of three, right? She wasn't like the lead.
Exactly. But when you think of like any like rom-coms and stuff, like majority, I can't think of any. I know there's like one recent one, and it's really cheesy on Netflix. Have you seen PS to All the Boys I Love or something?
Oh yes. So I saw the first one of that series. I think she's Asian.
She's Asian, so that's like an example. But again, like, you know, the Hollywood like blockbusters and stuff, like,
for sure,
I think we still have yet to see. And you know, you guys honestly correct us if we're wrong in the comment section if you know of any movies. But like, you know, think of like classics like The Notebook, Titanic, any of these kind of like this kind of like level of films. We just haven't seen that like depiction really.
But, you know, it's really interesting now because now I feel like there's this kind of, especially starting 2020, I think it was like when things got kicked off with like people being really into diversity, casting, diversity, just the term diversity was like very heavily used. Yeah, it became a buzzword. Yeah. And now I feel like now we're in this weird space where I think a lot of companies, not just with media, but like a lot of companies are now just like hiring, you know, minorities just for, you know, those little checks and balances, you know?
Yeah, for the little tick in the box.
Because people like will call them out if they don't, which is another thing. I don't know how much I agree with calling out companies. I don't know. There's so much that goes into casting or also to like hiring people for like actual just roles. Yeah. I do think Hollywood, there's definitely like a white, what do you call it? A white dominant kind of nature to Hollywood, for sure.
It's been like that for a very long time.
Exactly. And it's only kind of changed slightly in the last few years. But when it comes to like corporate, you know, corporations, I've seen people like calling out certain companies being like, you don't hire enough like, you know, people of color. And I'm like, we don't know the full situation. I don't know. Like, what if they're headquartered in, you know, middle of Mississippi? Actually, Mississippi would have lots of black people, right?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
think so.
Southern.
But you're right. I think it's situational, but I do feel this is where it gets hard because
Yes.
it's hard for you to just say, oh, they're not hiring enough. They're not being a diverse employer. So I think
Yes.
it's like two sides of the coin. But then again, we don't know who's applying for the roles, first of all, right?
Yes,
so there could
exactly.
there could be, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't disagree that there is some discrimination that goes on in the workplace against race, 100%.
Yes.
So don't take like.
And
guys,
there's some
let's-
like what they call implicit bias. Yes, or something.
Unconscious bias, yeah.
Sure.
So I do get that, but I also don't think it's 100% of the case. I think
Yes.
also some of the time it's, who's applying for the roles, everything else. I also don't agree with giving somebody a role
Yes.
just based on, external factors. Because like
I know
at the
it
end of the
makes
day,
me cringe. That makes
Yeah.
me cringe.
because if it's like you're just doing it for tick box, like, I mean, obviously in an ideal world, there'd be no unconscious bias, there'd be no racism, and you would hire the best person for the job, regardless of sexuality, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnicity. Like those things wouldn't even come into factor. It would just be who's the best person for the job.
Right.
Now that's obviously the ultimate goal or the ultimate
That's the fantasy
thing.
world that we're
Exactly.
we want to be in, but we are definitely not there.
Exactly. So unfortunately, I feel like the reason that they have to put these like almost like quotas in and stuff like that is because
Yes.
if they didn't, even if
It would
they
be
had
all
people,
white men.
Exactly. If they had people
Yes.
of color applying, and it's not just like, it is kind of crazy because like it's also industry specific as well. Like certain industries are worse than others because like, for example, I worked in finance in the UK, and let me tell you, it was an old boys club. It was
Right.
crazy to me. And I also worked at another company that was like more like project management and construction. And we had like, it was one of the crazy, not craziest, but like I went to one of these conferences where we had all of our senior leaders there, right? And I'm not kidding you. There was 70 people there because it's like a really big company and like all over the country and everything.
Sure.
70 people there, and there was 3 women. I was like,
But
this
also, I mean, it's a bit crazy, but also
Yeah.
we also have to take into consideration what are the kind of roles that women also apply for. I mean, I don't know if I told people this on this podcast, but when I first went into university, I actually was in nursing for the first semester. And then I was like, oh, can't do this. Can't do
Yeah.
this. Full respect for nurses. I don't know how you guys do your job. Like, it's amazing. But anyways.
oh my God, yeah.
So I was in nursing, and there were like 4 men or 4 boys,
Yeah.
I guess, in the entire faculty.
Yeah.
And it was like all women. So that's another thing to kind of, I mean, again, we could go deep into why that is.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of both biological reasons as well as, societal reasons that
100%.
women more likely choose a nursing job, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we also have to take that into consideration. Like, we can't just be like, oh, it's all men at this finance event. Therefore, finance is a sexist
Discriminating against
industry.
women.
You know what?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. So there's so many other factors that I think so many people just ignore, and they just immediately think, oh, it's people are just sexist against women,
Yeah,
and women
yeah.
aren't able to have these. No, that's not the case necessarily.
Exactly. And it's funny, like you bring up nursing. I think that's a really good example of some
Yeah.
of the, like, societal biases as well, or societal views. And there's a really good film that I used to love when I was younger called Meet the Parents or something. I think it's called Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents. Is that the one with
Ben,
the Fockers?
Yes, the Fockers, right? And the son,
Oh
or
my
the
god, it's so good.
it's so good. The guy that she was marrying, basically,
He was a
happened to be
nurse.
he was a nurse.
Yes.
And I remember he told the family, and her family was like very like, again, they were
Judgmental.
like, oh, so you're not they thought he was a doctor or something. They're like, you're not a doctor, you're a nurse.
Right.
Like you're a male nurse. And like that wasn't even that long ago. Like there's this
Yeah.
like stigma that if you're a male nurse, you're
weak.
weak, you're not masculine, you're all of these things. Like, so I can see there's probably, like you said, there might be biological reasons, but also societal reasons, because there
So
could be guys
many.
that exactly legitimately want to become nurses, but are like, oh, I don't want people to question my, what XYZ or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
To go into nursing. So
Even though
it's-
nursing is a very it's a good career. Like, it's a very good career. It's very difficult. There's
Yeah.
a lot of work involved. So yeah, there is definitely a huge stigma. And I think it's because, again, we live in this world where it's like male dominant, and we think of female jobs as below because we think of male
Yeah.
jobs as above, or what is traditionally female or male jobs. So if a man is like, you know, if a woman is like a high power lawyer or something, then it's kind of, now we're kind of seeing that as like like that's a strong woman, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But then when a man is a nurse, it's like, ooh, you're just a nurse? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's messed up. It's messed up in so many ways. But anyways.
It's like the way our society, I don't know, it's just the way it's been built up to this like, to the point of where we are. Like, it's like the whole, like you said, like if a woman becomes like a high powered lawyer, for example, you know, like she becomes really, you know, high up there or whatever, you know, quite senior role somewhere, you know, a lot of the time, you know, instead of she might get congratulated a bit, but a lot of the time, a lot of people will think about, oh, well, you know, think of all the sacrifices she's had to make as a, you know, if she wanted to be a mother or any of these other things.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if a guy was to be in the same position, nobody ever thinks about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, very rarely would they say,
like, who's taking care of her kids? Nobody asks that about the guy.
Exactly.
Right? They just assume.
It's the wife. Exactly. They're like, oh, like literally, it's so stupid. Like, it's so, like, we're in the 21st century now, people. Like, I just,
But I mean, it's still there for sure. I don't know. It's weird.
100%.
Yeah.
So,
but I know that I wouldn't want to be hired. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one because you're right. There needs to be some sort of guideline. I'm not completely against having, you know, certain kind of standards or maybe expectations of companies having a diverse workforce. But at the same time, I think it goes so much deeper than that. There's societal issues. There's, you know, education opportunities for different communities of different colors. And so, you know, it's so much deeper than just, oh, this company needs to hire more white people or more Asian people or black people or whatever it is. But I would always think, like, if there was such a big push to hiring Asians or black people or something, I'd always question if I got hired. I'd be like, did I get hired because I'm an Asian woman? You know, did I get hired because I'm good, or did I get hired because I'm an Asian woman?
Exactly.
And I don't want to have to question that. So I don't know.
And you don't want to think. You don't want to think to yourself, because especially when you get a job, there's like that feeling of like, I got this job, like this is awesome.
You deserve
know what I mean?
it.
Like, I deserve it. My credentials, my work experience, my interviewing, everything got me to where I want to be, and you're proud of that, right? And you don't want to have that kind of voice in the back of your head to think, oh, like, is this just because, you know, maybe I'm a woman? Is it because I'm this, because I'm this, because I'm this?
Yeah.
You want to think like they hired me because they, you know, wanted me for that job, you know, like, and so you're right. It's not black and white. I feel like that particular issue. And I do think that a lot of people make it black and white, or they try to. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
In a sense where, they don't.
I think that's the problem on both ends of the argument. Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'm like in the middle where I'm like, I kind of agree, but I also kind of disagree. Like I don't really know where I land. And I don't think it's that. Yeah, it's definitely not black and white. Have you seen the show Bridgerton?
I started watching it. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because I didn't read into it. I haven't watched it, but my roommate watched it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, because it's supposed to be set in like the old times in England or something, and there's like black people everywhere in the royal. Like I don't really like
She's
know
the queen. The queen's black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, because I think there's different arguments from different sides. First, I'm like, that seems very just, you know, forced, right? Like it seems like you're just, again, because it's supposed to be a historical role, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not.
I mean, it is set in like, it's supposed to be like,
ways.
Like kind of olden days. It's supposed to be like old.
Right.
Like,
so to me, it seems a bit weird to put, you know, people of color when they weren't in that kind of position. But maybe that's the new way of casting where it's like you don't take into consideration the history. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
I find it interesting.
Enough of it. I've only watched, I think I've seen
no,
maybe
but
one
I'm
or
just
two
talking
episodes.
about the context. I mean, the situation. So what do you make of that?
Well, I think if the show is meant to be historical and it's supposed to be that way, then I think, you know, then it's kind of out of place. But I think that the show itself isn't necessarily supposed to be so historical. Like I think it's supposed to be a take on what it was like back then.
Okay.
But it's not like a so set, because like, I get why for certain films and stuff, if you're depicting like old Britain, for example, and the royal family and everything else, like, you know, if you're going as to what was historically happened, you would have to typecast because, you know, at least I think you would if you wanted to remain true to history, right?
What do you mean you wouldn't have to typecast?
No, you would have to typecast. Like you'd have to cast like
you'd have to cast white people. Right. If you were trying to be roles. Historical.
Exactly.
Right.
But if it was more
when it
like
comes to, this is more like a fantasy kind of.
Exactly. It was more
even
like
though okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
I think I still need to watch more of it.
Right.
Another thing that's really interesting actually, and a show that I highly recommend. It does, again, it takes a little while to get into, but I absolutely loved it. I watched it a while ago.
Are you going to talk about Schitt's Creek? Okay.
No, guys.
Every time you're like talking about a show, I'm like, okay, he's going to talk about Schitt's Creek.
I know. I mean, everybody knows on this podcast by now I love Schitt's Creek. Okay, guys?
Yes.
Like, I think, you know, anyway.
Okay, so what's the show?
So the show is called Hollywood.
Okay.
It's on Netflix. And it's it's such an interesting one because in some ways there's like positive and negative things, but it
sure.
showcases like, it's set in like I think the 1920s or 1930s of like old Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
And there's like a controversial film that gets picked up by this film studio and they decide to cast the lead to a black female.
Oh.
And it's so well done. Obviously it's like not like biologic. I don't know if it's a biopic, but it's like it's so good.
It's fiction.
Yeah, it's fiction.
Right.
But honestly, and there's a lot of like
maybe I'll watch
racial,
that. That sounds interesting.
It is. There's a gay couple in there. There's like a black screenplay.
So what's the conclusion? Is it a good well, obviously during that time, if they were depicting Hollywood during the olden times, there was a lot of controversy.
Oh, it was huge. It was hugely
right.
controversial because the only reason that this play, there's so many things that happen, but there's like an owner of the studio, right? It's called like Acme Studios or something like this. There's the owner and his wife. Obviously, he's like super wealthy, whatever else. He actually ends up slipping into a coma or something. Like something happens to him. And it turns out in his will, if anything was to happen to him where he couldn't make decisions for a little while, the power would go to his wife. Okay. So his wife all of a sudden became like the senior director of this company.
Oh, okay.
And she's the one that gave the green light to this play.
Right.
And decided to, and because of her advisors and everything else, they decided to shake things up a bit. And it was like so well done.
Okay, I'm going to watch this. Don't tell me more.
I won't. I won't even tell you what happens at the end because like, yeah, there's some really good moments, but it's like I think it's so well done with that whole like, you know, controversial like casting in Hollywood and yeah, it's just so good. It's so good. So definitely recommend it. There's one scene as well. So the girl that they do end up casting for the lead of this play, she was already working as like an actor for this particular company, but they always cast her in like maid type roles.
Of course.
And you see
that would be so annoying.
Yeah. And she was like the most, even the instructor was like, she's the most talented in our like acting class. Like she's so amazing and beautiful and everything.
Sure.
Anyway, she's doing this like maid role. And she like says it with like she has a nice voice and everything else. And she speaks quite eloquently. And afterwards it's so bad. The director's like, actually, can we retake that? Can you just say it a little bit more like, just like, basically sound stupid basically.
Oh my God.
It was so bad, but like the whole thing overall, it's like it's really well done. So
right.
I liked it. And it's just it's not like a big series, it's just one season. Like it's what do they call it, like a short series,
a mini series,
something like this. Yeah, there's like 8 episodes I think, but
okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's good.
Are you sure it's still on Netflix? When did you watch it, Daniel?
I watched it like a while ago, like probably.
It might not be on Netflix.
Oh God damn!
I'll check. I'll let you know.
I don't even know if I watched it on Canadian Netflix either. So that could be
Daniel,
something.
why do you ruin my life? Don't tell me about shows until we confirm that it's on Canadian Netflix.
Oh God damn!
Anyways, oh my gosh, shall we move on to the one story of today?
Oh God. Okay, guys. Well, first of all, backtrack for 2 seconds, and I do apologize. I'm gonna call myself out for not doing some. Before Rose calls me out, I thought I just might as well beat her to the punch.
What would you have done if I didn't send you that story, Daniel?
Oh God damn. I don't know. Well, I kind of already knew about this story anyway.
Oh, okay.
Well, I did. But no, it's been a very busy couple of days, and
has it? Oh,
yeah.
really?
And
okay.
Today, why I didn't do some research for stories was because I went looking for a new flat, which is exciting.
Yay!
Rose came with me. And somehow I could do some research.
And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And somehow I could do some research. And
because you didn't have to bike home and you had an extra hour and
well,
something.
that's because I already live at my own place, you know.
I know.
Called out. But Daniel, yes, that we saw some places for Daniel.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
So guys, probably
You'd
by
be a grown
April
boy.
1st. Yeah. I won't have this background.
You'll have a much brighter background potentially.
Yeah.
And maybe
So-
we'll record together soon.
Exactly. Well, once I'm living by myself, we could
In
can
the
hang out.
cohort?
Yep.
Oh yeah, we can.
We can be cohort so that we can record in
gotta
person.
make sure you don't have the vid, Daniel.
Oh goddamn! Maybe I go get tested.
Oh God.
I don't want to be a super spreader. You know.
You-
That's the
Anyways, that was very exciting. So Daniel's potentially going to have a new flat very soon.
Yeah, guys. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Super exciting. Super exciting.
Moving up in life.
Well, it was about time. Like, you know, oh my God, I don't even know if I told everyone on the podcast as well. Did I mention that I got my license? I can't remember if I said that or not.
I don't know. Did we talk about it last week? Maybe not.
I don't think
Daniel
we did.
got
because-
his license.
Yes. Guys, like this is like, you know, I know I'm like a 32-year-old child right now, but like slowly things are changing. And
Getting your shit together very
Exactly.
slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. Went and did my advanced driving test, road test, passed it, which is awesome. So yeah.
With almost flying colors. Daniel passed it with his charm, guys.
I did, yeah.
With his charm, because Daniel talks up a storm. So he distracted the driving instructor to pass him.
It's funny.
He was probably
because-
like, I don't want to have to make him take this test again and listen to his whole life story again.
It's so funny because I don't think I actually talk that much and I don't think I'm that chatty. But like every time we go out, Rose is like, oh my God, Daniel, you're going to be the most
say it like that.
embarrassing dad.
You're definitely going to be the most embarrassing dad. Guys, Daniel is one of those people, like if we go out or like, you know, if we have to deal with anyone like salesperson, you know, waitress, realtor,
Yeah.
he will start telling his life story and he'll be like, oh yeah, so like, you know, I'm a deep sleeper and my parents are light sleepers and like, you know, hopefully when I'm old, I'm not a light sleeper. And then he's such a dad. So I told him, I was like, oh my God, your kids are going to be so embarrassed by you because you'd be such an embarrassing dad.
I know.
Because you already are such an embarrassing dad and you don't even have children.
I know my kids are going to be like, oh my God, Dad, like, can we please don't talk to anyone when we're out? Like, can you just be normal for once? And like, not.
Isn't
and
your dad
like,
an embarrassing dad?
what's that?
Is your dad an embarrassing dad?
Kind of, yeah. I feel like in some ways
on a whole new level of embarrassing dad syndrome.
I am.
Yes. And at that with your dad jokes, oh my.
What dad jokes? Come on. I had
Oh my
you
God,
laughing
you have so
in
many
stitches
dad
today.
jokes. Okay, but those were not dad jokes. I'm not okay.
true.
Those were your, you know, other jokes that were actually funny. But Daniel has dad jokes that I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm sure you guys have heard them in this podcast.
Yeah, I probably said them.
Although he does, you do tone them down for the podcast a little bit.
I do. Well, I don't want to tell all of our listeners my secrets and, you know, have everybody be like, oh my God, Daniel.
No, it's a charm about you, Daniel. The dad jokes are the charm.
It's a charm. You know, you would think, you know, charming, talkative, super, you know, social, chatting with everyone.
I'm wondering where this sentence is going to end.
Do you know where it's going to end?
You're going to complain about being single.
Yes, I don't understand, guys. Like, I like.
Shall we go into the deepest psychological analysis of why you're single?
No, I'm not ready for that
Guys,
yet. Just
today
yet,
Daniel
Rose.
was telling me the story. I'm not going to go into details, but he was telling me the story about this guy that he went on a date with in London, and they had a good time. And then I was like, okay, so what happened? He's like, oh, I just didn't want to see him again. And I was like, why? He's like, I don't know. This is why Daniel is single.
Oh God.
No
Okay.
reason. Just didn't want to see him, even though you had a good time with him.
Moving on.
Just didn't want. We'll get into Daniel's psychological analysis another episode.
Yeah.
Continuing on, guys.
We should, you know what I should have really talked about it is when we had Angela on the podcast, you know, and we could have talked about
deep dive.
exactly.
It's okay. Angela's also not a psychiatrist, so he's
No, exactly.
You need,
This is
you
so
need
true.
professional help, Daniel. Okay.
Oh God, the shade, the shade, guys.
I'm joking, guys. I mean, to be fair, I think we all need professional help. Oh my God, I just want to say that me and Daniel had a conversation a few days ago, and I think I came to the conclusion of how to make this world a better place. And I told Daniel that I think we should all have counseling for children at schools as a mandatory thing, just like for everyone, not for, the problem child, not for, whatever, but literally for everybody. So I was thinking, that every week, you just once a week, a child gets, an hour with the counselor to just talk about, whatever that they want to talk about.
Whatever's going on. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this would be revolutionary. I feel like it would help so much.
Well, and I think you're right. I think on so many levels, because it would empower people to be more open about talking about their feelings.
Yes.
It would become a normality to be having, to reach out for therapy when you need help. That would be a normality. It wouldn't be something that would be still, even to this day, even with all the mental health awareness going on and everything else, I still feel like there's a little bit of stigma around going and seeing a therapist. Whereas you're right. If you have,
I said, it's not necessarily a stigma, but it is a stigma to some degree, but it's more so that we don't feel comfortable doing it. Because it's not something that we've been trained to do, to talk to people about our feelings or whatever it is.
Exactly. This is
a very uncomfortable thing.
Hugely. Like, you mentioned about how I like talk to everybody, and I do. But like when it gets down to like the nitty gritty, like talking about my feelings and stuff, like I'm not good at that. You know what I mean? Like I can talk about my sleep patterns and my day and everything else.
And your
parents'
but like, sleep patterns.
Oh, goddamn. But like if it comes down to actually like opening up and like taking a deep dive into me, then I'm a little bit like,
yes. So like seriously, we need to. Like, I don't understand. It should be a thing. It should be a thing. It also would help, like, if kids were getting, like, I don't know, if they were in an abusive home, they have more of a chance. Because it's like, it's easy to say, oh, call the kids helpline. Again, I'm not mocking these services. I think they're definitely very important. But I think it's harder than it looks, or it's harder than it seems to call those things or to seek help when you haven't been trained to do so. So
exactly. Like,
so if you make every kid do it, then it's like, okay, we're all just going to learn how to do it, Exactly. And you're, like you said, it's like you're opening up and doing that stuff. It's like a muscle, right? Like the more you do it, the better you get at it. Exactly.
And you're right. Like, I think those helplines are so important, because I know there's lots of people that use them, but I would also argue there's lots of people that don't, because they don't know, don't have the courage to call the line. They don't even know how to talk about what's going on when they do call the line. Like there's just so many different, whereas you're right, like if it started at a really young age, and again, like take away the stigma, take away everything else, and you start just being open about what's going on.
Yes.
Honestly, Rose, you're a genius sometimes.
I know. I know sometimes. You mean every day, Daniel. If I was on the board of education, I would implement this immediately.
I know.
It would decrease violence.
There's no budget.
That's fucking ridiculous. Okay. There's so many useless classes in schools that you literally, it just is not necessary. And it's just even like 15 minutes per child.
Yeah.
A
just
week.
Have someone just to chat with, and you're right. Get used to doing that. And then also, even if you don't necessarily go get counseling when you're older, but it means maybe in your relationships, your friendships, you're more open, you're more like able to talk about things, and you just have more positive and productive, I guess, relationships. Yeah. And emotional like intelligence, stability, all those things. Anyways, that's my crazy idea. Yeah, I would like to pitch it to the Board of Education. Rose for president of the Board of Education. Maybe I'll send a letter. I'll be like, guys, I have a brilliant idea. This is my recommendation. Yes, honestly. Anyways, that's my crazy thought. But shall we go to the story of today, which is depressing? You know how we were going to say we're going to talk about some positive shit? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that was my positive input to the world. Not sure if anything's going to come from it, but if any of you guys are maybe part of a board of education, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you can, suggest this. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're behind the idea, I think it's a great idea, to be honest. Yes. It's I can only see positive things happening from that. Exactly. So that's our positive piece of the day. Before we get into something that is it is grim. God. Everybody's been talking about this story, and so they should. I mean, this is wow. But do you think it's also getting more coverage because she's a white woman? That's another thing. Oh, Rose. Probably. I do wonder. Yeah. I do wonder if it happened to, a black woman. Mm-hmm. I wonder if it would get so much coverage. But anyways, That's a good question.
Do you have the story in front of you, Daniel?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ooh.
Oh, gosh.
Is this conversation boring to you, Daniel?
No.
I think you're exhausted from the cold. It was kind of cold today.
Oh my God, it was so cold. And then I biked home from downtown, guys. That's why my face is extra red. And I'm still like warming up. I feel like even though I've been back home for like an hour almost, I'm just like still, you know, when you just get cold to the bone. I have a hot tea here. I have a little like heater that's like blowing hot air on me right now. And I'm still like, anyways.
Little baby Daniel.
I know. I digress. So basically, the story that we're going to talk about, guys, is the story of Sarah Everard. I'm not sure if I'm going to say that right, but basically, she was last seen on a busy South London street just after 9:30 p.m. on March 3rd. Police confirmed Friday that a body. So that was March 3rd. What day was that?
I think it was a few days before. Let me check. So March 3rd would have been Wednesday.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So then it said police confirmed Friday, so 2 days later, that a body found by investigators was that of the 33-year-old marketing executive, and that Wayne Couzens, an elite officer with London Metropolitan Police Diplomatic Protection Command, had been charged with her murder.
Commenting that makes no sense.
I know. The thing is, like, again,
okay,
we
keep
don't
going.
Yeah, it's crazy. Commenting on the arrest, Police Commissioner Cressida Dick said that this case has caused waves of shock and anger through the public and the entire police force. We are utterly appalled at this dreadful news. Our job is to patrol the streets and to protect the people. This case has set off calls for action on male violence against women and girls and a change in the dialogue that surrounds it. Oh my God. I just feel like...
Keep going. So what? Okay, so she was going home, right? So she was going home, and she was in Clapham. So if you guys know London at all, Clapham is a pretty busy area as far as I know. Like it's a pretty like, I think she was walking through the park. I don't know. I mean, we don't know exactly like the details of when she was, whatever happened to her.
Yeah.
And it was not that late. It was like 9 something o'clock.
9:30. Yeah, it was around 9:30. She was heading home.
Oh my God, it's just crazy. Anyways, was it a man and his wife or something? That's what I thought I read.
No.
Oh, okay.
From what you mean from who attacked her?
Yes.
No, it sounds like it was this police officer. Like from this story that I'm reading, guys, it sounds like it was this particular police officer that's been charged with her murder, basically, which is crazy.
Do we know why he did it?
No. Let's see.
And then what happened after that, Daniel?
Oh God. Well, first of all, the thing that really bothers me about this story, before we even talk about what happens after, which is really bad, is the fact that, again, this is going back to, like, we talked about this a little bit with like the George Floyd story and some other stories that happened around police brutality early in other episodes of this podcast. And the issue here is you have somebody, like, the fact that it's a man doing this to this woman is horrible, but the fact that it's a police officer,
that's weird.
Yeah. Like,
okay, wait. It says this. The police made 2 arrests. The first was a 48-year-old police constable. What is constable? Is that it's like an officer?
I think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Wayne Couzens on suspicion of kidnapping, and a second woman in her 30s on suspicion of assisting an offender. I don't know what that means, but so there's been 2 arrests.
Yeah, so maybe he was helped, I guess, in some way.
Maybe, or maybe she helped cover it up. Who knows? Okay.
Exactly. There could be, we don't know the whole story, and we don't know 100% for sure. I mean, he's been suspected of it, but he hasn't necessarily been charged yet, has he?
No, not necessarily. But like, no. What?
I know. The thing that bothers me, I mean, the story's horrible either way you look at it, but the fact that it's a police officer, because like, imagine like, Rose, if you were like walking home at night and a police officer approached you, you would feel safe.
I don't think he was on duty though. But either way, I mean, it doesn't make it better, but like, I'm just saying that he wasn't like in uniform, I don't think. Yeah. But either way, it's fucked up.
We don't know though. We don't know. Like maybe he was. I mean, yeah, either way,
or maybe he was in uniform. Who knows? Yeah. Like, who knows? Yeah.
I mean, if it's in uniform, I almost like, I mean, it's not better or worse, but I just think
you would expect them to protect you. They're supposed to protect you.
Exactly. These people are supposed to protect you. And that's why I'm like, oh my God, like it just makes you feel so uneasy and unsettled. You know what I mean? Like, and like you said, I mean, those of you that know London, Clapham Common is like a pretty busy area. It's very trendy. It's not like a rough area of London at all. I mean, there's probably parts of it that are rougher because London always has like pockets of niceness and then pockets of roughness like right next to it. But like, you know, like I would feel safe walking home in Clapham Common.
Apparently not anymore.
No, to be honest.
Well, you might because you're a man.
That's true. But things could still happen to me, Rose. You don't know that.
Oh, God. I mean, it could, but it's much more statistically unlikely. Yes.
Exactly.
And that's what happened. That's why it sparked, God, I feel like, it sparked more conversation toward violence against women and harassment.
Yes.
And then what happened, Daniel?
Oh, gosh. So then I guess people were really moved. People were really touched by this story. They were like very like not moved. They were like basically like in shock. What's the word?
And we're still all in. They're all in shock. They were empathizing with the story. And again, we're still in quarantine, so I think that it fuels our fire more because we're paying more attention. So then basically there was kind of like a vigil. Is it a vigil or a protest?
They called it an impromptu memorial. So they said an impromptu memorial sprang up on Saturday in the South London neighborhood where Everard had disappeared. Having earlier planned vigils in the city across the country, the Reclaim the Streets group that organized the events canceled. What the hell?
Okay, I don't know if you're at. Which part are you at? Here, let me read this part.
Okay.
On Saturday, several hundred people gathered at the Clapham Common to mourn Everard, despite a planned vigil being canceled after the police cited COVID-19 restrictions. Oh, okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's what happened.
So I guess they initially canceled what was originally planned, and then people still showed up. And some of the
police
signs,
warnings.
Right. Some of the signs at the rally read, "She was just walking home. We are the 97%," referring to a recent survey that found that almost all women in Britain had endured harassment. The event ended in violence as the protesters and police clashed, and officers handcuffed and led women away from the event amid cries of "shame on you" and "let them go." 4 people were arrested. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. It's hard. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know the full details.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I feel like it's hard to take a side because we don't know exactly what was happening there. And I do think it makes things complicated that it's COVID-19 and that maybe they weren't following the guidelines. And that's another kind of complicated layer to it. I'm not saying one side is right or wrong. But then I think maybe because that happened, it sparked more outrage to police and,
Well,
I don't know.
The London mayor actually commented about it, and he said, and this kind of makes sense, like, well, part of it, the scenes from Clapham Common are unacceptable. The police have a responsibility to enforce the COVID laws, but from images I've seen, it's clear the response was at times neither appropriate nor proportionate, right?
Right.
So we talk about this concept of appropriate and proportionate force that's necessary during these things, right? And I do see, like, you're right. The challenge here is I get why the people obviously wanted to do this. This is a huge story. This is really sad. They wanted to mourn, and it's not just for Sarah Everard. It's kind of for every woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what this vigil and this gathering was for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are in the midst of a global pandemic whereby, these kind of, gatherings can do also like, what am I trying to say? You can also help spread a virus. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I can see why they were doing it. I think were the police within their right to enforce the COVID laws? Yes. But did they do it in an appropriate way? That's the question, I think.
Right.
Were they... I think it looks bad though too, because if you look at it on the other side, the fact that the person in question that's
was
suspected
a
of suspected of the murder is a police officer, and then you have police officers kind of violently breaking up this vigil.
Right.
It just looks bad from a PR perspective. I'm not saying that they were looking out for their buddy who was suspected or whatever, but it just looks bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, I think it's also because I think some of the signs and some of the way that they were protesting was obviously against kind of police, policemen in general, police and how they're not doing their job properly. So that probably sparked some kind of anger from police officers. So they weren't necessarily acting, just to protect people. So that's another thing. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh God. I think this story is just so sad. Just this woman, she's only 33 years old.
Yeah.
And she's just walking home. Like,
yeah.
What the fuck?
I think the part of it is like hit home is like, I mean, it does generally with a lot of these cases, but it's like, again, it just reinforces like really, it could be anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my
like,
God. Right.
You just don't know what could happen. And it's really, really scary. And, I know that's why a lot of friends, like quite often when they leave parties or whatever, there was that text message that was going viral on social media. A lot of people were posting it like, text me when you get home safe. And it was like reinforcing about how, especially women more so than guys, like if guys go out with a bunch of their friends, generally when they leave, they don't necessarily text their friend like, hey,
really?
Let me know when you get home.
Does that conversation, is that very foreign to men?
I think so. Like,
yeah. Cause like it's very common for women, which I mean, like, like for women, we always say that. We're always like, oh yeah, text me when you get home. I'm just like used to saying that now. I even say it to like you and stuff. I say it to like everybody. I'm just like used to say it. I think so for sure. Yeah. But like I definitely do think it's much more prevalent with women, and it makes sense because there's so much more violence toward women.
Yeah.
God, it's so messed up.
I know. I just wish it would be like we lived in a safe world.
I'm telling you guys, counseling for children.
Yeah. That is actually a very good point, Rose. I think you
Rose out, and then that way they can get like diagnosed properly if they do have some kind of mental issues when they're young, and
try to go through like process to kind of like help them.
Exactly. And if you get them when they're young, they're much more likely to be able to get better and not commit violence or something,
because they can be shaped. You know what I mean? Like young minds are molded, right? So, it's an interesting one. But this story,
and she was walking home to Brixton, I think, which is like not a very far walk. It's at about 50-minute walk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of far, but it's like not like crazy.
Yeah.
And it was not that late. And I don't know, like it's insane.
I know.
I guess we'll find out more details later, but it's troubling. I think it's also, it hits home to a lot of women because of the fact that like, it sounds like a very kind of, you're right. Like it sounds like something, it could happen to anybody because like how many of us have walked home at 10 o'clock at night?
Exactly. Because that's not even that late. Like,
it's
you know
not
what I
that
mean?
late.
Like, this is the thing that's crazy. Like, not saying that time justifies anything, right?
Of course.
But like, when you're going home at like 3 a.m,
yeah,
really, really late walking home, your chances of something happening, or you kind of expect it's going to be more dangerous, right?
Yes.
But if you're walking home at like 9:30, like at night, like 9:30, you don't expect that to
anything,
be exactly, because it's still like kind of in some places, like especially in Calgary, it can still be light out at that time. You know what I mean? Like, not right now.
In a place like London, it would be expected that. I mean, I don't know how it is during the pandemic, so it's hard for me to say. But in a place like London, 10 o'clock is not that late, and there's probably people out and about.
Tons of people out.
So it's like it's not that late. So I think that's what hits home to a lot of women, because we've all experienced like walking home late, and it is a little shady, and we've all experienced like that creepy guy that might be kind of following us. Like,
oh God.
Oh God.
That is scary. That is just so scary. And it's just, so young, 33 years old.
I know. I feel for her, man. It's sad.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, and the thing that sucks too, like, also, I do feel like, I think it's great that there's this, this discussion happening and everything.
Yeah.
But I guess some men have also jumped on Twitter as well.
Oh,
saying they're being unfairly portrayed as well. Like, because not all, and there's like a new hashtag on Twitter, not all men.
I think that here's the problem. I think this is what I kind of have observed, is that I think that it can go a bit far with this sort of activism where it becomes, like, it does happen where it almost seems like we are demonizing and putting all men in the same category. It's the same thing with, when Black Lives Matter happened, and it was almost like people felt like they needed to apologize for being a white person, and it can go a little ridiculously far. And I think it's great to have these discussions, and these things do exist. Of course, there's discrimination and harassment toward women. Of course, there's, racism toward Black people in America, like absolutely. But at the same time, I think we need to have more rational discussions, because if you have these kind of really black or white answers to all these situations, saying basically, oh, fuck the patriarchy, men, like men are the devil. Like, I don't know what people are saying, but I do think it does spark, it kind of adds fuel to the complete opposite side, where men are now being like, fuck you, women. I mean, and I'm not saying that, I'm not necessarily excusing the men that are being like, oh, like not all men, because a lot of it, I'm sure it's just stupid and they're misinterpreting what the women are saying. But I do think that, I think it's part of, the whole like left woke culture sometimes gets taken a little bit too far. And then, the other side kind of seems more rational, if you will.
Yeah. So that's why I think that, again, like with these issues, like there is no, and I feel like that's the theme of this podcast.
Black or white.
Yeah. It's like, it's not like 2 + 2 = 4. It's like, there's very complex layers to a lot of these issues. And to say that, like, pointing out to, because I think another kind of enemy that's come out of a few stories now.
Okay.
Well, is the police force, right? Like the police force is becoming more and more, and I'm not denying that there are police officers out there and there's some strange stuff going on, corruption, whatever have you or whatever. But there's also some really great people that are on the police force as well.
Right.
There's so I just feel like, again, we're quick to like grab the pitchforks and, really rally behind a cause, which I'm not saying, I'm not saying these causes are bad or anything like that, but I think we need to think about what we're we need to think about, of
rational like ways of addressing the problem rather than simply pointing fingers and saying like whatever people are saying, right? And I don't know what people are saying exactly, but like, because I remember, like, one thing that comes to mind is, like, a few years ago, this is a little bit died down now, but, like, a few years ago, there was a big kind of, big kind of fight against what people call social justice warriors. You know what social justice warriors are?
Is it, like, people that are, like, extremely extreme, like, fighting for... like
social justice,
equality, and all of that
exactly
stuff,
but it's so people that are kind of like that get offended a lot at a lot of things that we might find kind of cringy, like people that get offended at jokes, for example, and they they're quick to call people like racist or fatphobic and just kind of like throw out those words, right? And there was like a big anti-social justice movement, so like the social justice people kind of came up, and a lot of them have very good points, but some of them it's almost like irrationally, like it's not thought out, and people will just label everybody racist, label everybody sexist, and if you don't agree, then you're racist and you're sexist and all this stuff. And then because of that kind of almost irrational behavior, it sparked a movement, a growth in the kind of right-wing conservative people that were in this space, the likes of like Ben Shapiro, for example. He became very popular during that time because he almost seemed rational, in talking against these women, and a lot of other figures came to be during that time. It almost fueled them because they were like, and of course their ideas are grotesque and horrible, and they're also very hypocritical, that they just don't show it. In the front, they'll say like, oh, look at this woman being crazy, these feminists are insane. And then they'll start, once you're in that group, then they'll start like infiltrating you with their stupid ideas because they're really fucking dumb. But anyway. So I do think that there is something to say about not just simply jumping on the
bandwagon.
Not the bandwagon. It's more so the rage train. I don't know, like people just being outraged. The outrage train.
Yeah.
I think we need to take every situation and look at it differently, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always on the fence. I'm always in the middle of everything.
I know.
I think that's important. I think it's important to have, understand both sides of the story.
Yeah.
It's not black or white,
Exactly. That's the thing. I feel like I'm very much there in many ways as well. Like in terms of like feeling like not necessarily, again, these are such complex issues, right? So I just feel like, I'm not pulled either way or the other, because I do think, again, it's important to talk about this stuff. It's good that we're talking about this stuff.
Yes.
But then, those quick, snap judgments, or those quick, like, like I said, grabbing the pitchforks and persecuting.
I like that statement.
I know, because it's so true though. It is
grabbing the pitchfork. Yeah.
It's representative. It's almost like hyper representative in cancel culture, for example. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of concept. It's saying,
exactly.
oh, this person's done something bad. We're going to jump on them and we're going to cancel them. We want them out of social media. We want them X, Y, Z. And people are so fast to do this. And it's like, well, come on, like, I'm not saying what this person did was good or great or bad or whatever, but like, let's think about it a little bit more, and let's have a discussion about it before we jump to this, conclusion that this person's bad. You know what I mean? Or this person should be canceled or whatever else. So I think it's,
that's why I don't know what side to take on a lot of issues. I mean, I'm obviously more like toward the, left-leaning side, but at the same time, I think we need to have more kind of in-depth discussions for all of these things. It's not just like, oh my God, like, because like, yes, there is harassment toward women. Absolutely. That is for sure the case. But it's like, what's the cause? What's happening? Like, why does this happen? Of course, it's not all men. And I do think that's problematic to say, like, not all men. It's like, okay, like, we get it. Okay, we're not saying all men do this, but we're saying all women experience this. That's the difference. But then we also have to talk about, okay, like, how do we fix this problem? Do we just blame the white man? Or do we, address, education? Do we address, parenting? I don't know. There's so many factors,
Exactly.
So, I do think demonizing a group is a big problem, because then again, it creates a lot of resentment toward the other group, and it really fuels the thing that you don't want to fuel, which is racism and sexism.
Exactly.
That's a big problem.
No, I would agree with that. The demonization of if that is even a word, demonization. I think we just created a word on this podcast, guys.
Oh God, it is a word, demonization. No,
yeah, I know. No, I think it is. I think you're right.
Did I just say that? I just said it right. I think it's a word.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't be. Yeah, Daniel, it's a word.
Okay, but you're right. Like that, that is gonna. It's ironic because when you I haven't said that in a while, actually. That felt good.
I think it's because I called you out. I
know. I've been like
trained yourself.
I've been like subconsciously like, I can't say this because Rose is gonna call me out. But it is ironic that by demonizing a group, you're essentially achieving what you don't want to be done.
Yes. Oh, see, you used ironic correctly, Daniel.
Right, guys?
I'll be your English teacher.
Goddamn. I got my license. I'm going to move out. I finally I speak English, and I correctly used ironic in a sentence, guys. I am on a fucking roll.
You are fucking winning at life, Daniel.
Oh,
shit.
So happy.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
The whole thing is interesting. I think COVID has really fueled lots of fires within a lot of us.
Do you feel do you feel that COVID has also like made things bigger? You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
1000%.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the George Floyd incident.
Yeah.
I think it's good that what happened at that moment sparked a lot of conversation. But I definitely think that because things have been happening like this for many years, in those communities. And some of them were like published to the world, but I didn't know about it until fucking George Floyd happened. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah. But there were riots before. It was just never on the same scale, like the scale. But I do also find that interesting where, this is the problem. A lot of people, when the whole George Floyd situation happened, this is another one of those examples where people were kind of on the outrage train, which I mean, I understand. It's a very sensitive issue and
that was
very difficult issue.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people were on the outrage train and they were kind of like calling out a lot of influencers and celebrities for not posting about it or not talking about it. And I think I never agreed with that. I was like, that's a little like, you don't know what people are doing behind the scenes. Just because they don't post something on social media, it does not necessarily mean they're not having conversations. But then now I just think it's funny because, you know, that happened. And then it was for those specific things that you had to post about. But then there's so many other things that happen in life or in the world that are just horrendous, you know, like this, for example, you know, a woman being killed, whatever it is. And also, like, for example, the violence against Asians, a lot of people were silent with that, but nobody said anything. So it's like, okay, so what is expected? So there's no rules here. People just kind of outrage and then they jump on the train. Did you hear a weird sound? Oh, it was like a weird, like, anyway, maybe it's my earphones. I don't know. There was like I can't do it. Anyway, I think that's interesting because I found that to be a bit of a double standard of which, you know, when Asians were getting attacked, it's like not many people said anything. And there was very little awareness outside of Asian communities.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't expecting people to post. Don't get me wrong. Like, I get it. Yeah. Like, you know, there's so many issues in the world, you know?
I know.
And again, just because someone's not posting about it doesn't mean they're not reading about it and learning about it.
And I think you're right though. I think because of COVID, and because everyone is, you know, we're all home more. Do you know what I mean?
Especially during George Floyd, everyone was home. You know what I mean? Like,
during George Floyd, everyone was in lockdown.
It was like, full on lockdown mode.
Exactly. And when it's amazing to see how much that influenced how big the stories were getting. Do you know what I mean? Things that were happening.
But did anything change?
This is the question. That's what I mean.
That's my question.
Exactly. I remember when we were talking about it as well, I was like, I wonder, you know, we keep hearing these stories. And I mean, obviously George Floyd was the really big one. Like that was the recent really big one. And I think the biggest, probably one of the more bigger stories because of the situation with COVID and everything else. But there has been other stories, subsequent stories.
Yeah, a
lot. And it begs to question again, like what is being done to address the problem? And, you know, I'm not sure. It's like, it's this is going to sound really bad, guys, but like, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm not drawing exact comparisons, but it's kind of like this pandemic that's happened. You know, we've had this massive global catalyst of an event, which has shook the world, right? So we're racing against the clock to get vaccines, to get everything up to speed, but then not up to speed, but get everyone, you know, in a vaccinated place into herd immunity, whatever. But then I guess my question that I still really, you know, don't know, I guess, is like, have we really got to the root cause, and are we preventing? Are we reactionary, or are we what's the other word? You know, are you reacting or
proactive?
Exactly. Are we being proactive as a society, or are we always going to be reacting like a reactive society? And I feel like with the COVID, we've been reactive, but have we learned anything? You know, have we really learned anything?
Right. You know, Jamie, is it Jamie? No, not Jamie Oliver. What the fuck? What is that? John Oliver. Okay, it was close.
Okay, yeah.
John, you know the talk show host that's British?
I don't know who John Oliver is.
He has glasses. He has like a very nerdy look. You would know him. Like he's all over YouTube.
Okay, let's see.
Late night talk show host.
Oh,
do you recognize him?
Yeah.
He did a segment recently called "The Next Pandemic." Okay. Which I haven't watched thoroughly. I think I started, but I don't know if I finished. But like, we should watch it and talk about it. Because he's talking about this, but we're like, are we gonna like learn something from this? Because I feel like the next one's coming. You know,
but this is the issue. It's like what's been. It's great that we're, you know, getting these vaccines out and everything else, and we've been really quick to do that. But then, are we once we get everyone vaccinated, have we addressed or effectively come up with precautions around a next?
And you know why, Daniel? You know why? The cause of all that is evil, capitalism.
We do talk about that a lot in this podcast.
But actually, there's no denying it. Okay, even though we're so entrenched in this capitalist world, but there is no denying it. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen?
That's actually really good. No, I think that's what we should do. We should definitely watch that. I'll watch that video.
Oh God, it's
John
probably going to
Oliver.
be depressing. Oh God.
I know, and we'll talk about it because I would be interesting. I would want to. Yeah, we'll discuss that next.
But I think there were some critiques from vegans because I think there was a lack of coverage of discussion of the real root cause, which is factory farming or these. What were they called? The wet markets.
Yeah, the wet markets.
I don't know though. I haven't actually fully watched it, but I have seen some critiques saying that it didn't fully address the issue at hand. This is the problem with so many of these like things. People that worry about the environment, people that worry about animal rights issues, they never still talk about the actual issue of factory farming because they're still meat eaters themselves. You know what I mean?
Well, this is the thing, and the challenging thing, not the challenging thing, the thing with these coronaviruses, all of them that we've had, these are viruses that are passed from animals to humans, right? Like that's been proven time and time again. All of these corona type viruses, like there's no denying that they're passed from animals to humans. And I guess the issue lies where there is extensive crossover between animals and humans. And those are going to be places, like the key places that's going to happen are those kind of wet markets where you have, all kinds of animals and people interacting or around each other. That is going to be factory farms, or you have a high concentration of animals with people coming in and out and, all of these things. So naturally, where those places are having that crossover, we're literally like asking for trouble. You know what I mean? Like
we are.
This one could have come from this one, they're saying this one came from the wet market, this coronavirus. Yeah. But I mean, look, we've had a couple that came from, we've had more than a few come from factory farming. We had the swine flu that was like breakout in the US from pig farming. Like there's just, we're just asking for trouble. Like we're saying, oh, let's deal with this pandemic that's happened. But then it's like, what are we doing?
We don't learn the lesson. Because we keep going into natural environments as well. Like we keep going into the wild and like infiltrating and making it our own and destroying ecosystems. And then of course there's going to be wild animals in those places. And again, we're going to have closer contact with those wild animals. And that means potentially more harm, potentially another pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn.
I know the scary thing is like there could be like thousands of viruses out there that are like there are like just, in the rainforest somewhere or wherever that we haven't got there yet. And then when we do, we might unleash it. You know what I mean? It's scary.
My God.
Damn.
You know what? Let's think about this. Let's end on a kind of positive note. Kind of, although not really. I don't know.
I'm ready for Rose's positive note.
A specimen. We are a bunch of cells just encompassing this human form. And we're just on this like rock called Earth, which is really a tiny stone, compared to the vastness of this universe. So really nothing we do really matters. And all the stresses in the world, they're minuscule.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of depressing.
I know.
But, sometimes you think about, okay, this has nothing to do with the pandemic, but like if you think about just your everyday problems, sometimes you want to think about it in that way because like we worry about like, oh my God, I have to pay. I mean, I guess paying bills is a big deal in today's capitalist world. But anyways, oh my God, like this friend is, mad at me or, like little bits of drama and, things that we worry about.
Yeah.
If you think about it in a grand, if you take a step back, you realize that we're just very insignificant little clumps of cells, living in a very small fraction of time. Yeah. Yes.
I think what you're trying to say, Rose, I mean, no, not what you're trying to say, but the positive note that we want to leave all of you guys with is because especially right now, obviously you're feeling some kind of ways with the pandemic and everything else. Is take it day by day. And if you're having like, a very stressful day, it seems like the end of the world, take a step back and think, actually, you know what, 2 days from now, 3 days from now, maybe a month from now, you're not going to remember that. And it's not going to be a big issue. Because I think all the times I was stressed out of my life and I look back and I'm like, really, like, I don't even think about it anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's gone. It's done and dusted. Yeah. So it might seem like a lot in that moment, but if you can try to like take a step back or whatever and just try to think, actually, you know what? In a week's time, this isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
There you go. You worded it much better. I'm like, you're insignificant.
I know. You're insignificant. So what Rose is trying to say. So you know what? You know, that's our little piece of advice.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to end this podcast, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed this. I mean, the story was very sad, but hope you took something out of this podcast. And if you did enjoy this podcast, make sure you rate, leave us a little thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you are listening or watching. And guys, don't forget to check out the lovely Patreon. We are fucking killing it on Patreon. Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's only $3 a month, guys. $3 a month for bonus episodes every single month. Plus, you get the episodes a week earlier than everybody else. Plus, they are ad-free, and you get to see our beautiful faces one extra time a month. I mean, what else can you ask for?
God.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, guys. It's The SaVeg Podcast, and thank you so much for listening. Anything else to add, Daniel?
That's it. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.